10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast, episode 171. Hey everybody, welcome back to the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast. This is episode 171. If you're brand new to the show, welcome in. We are so happy to have you here. If you're a longtime listener, thank you so much for tuning in yet again for your weekly dose of jazz lessons. If you are new to the show, or if you're looking for a way to support your favorite jazz podcast, you can do so by going to our Patreon site. Then you can find that by going to our website, 10minutejazzlesson.com, clicking on one of the Patreon banners, and signing up to pledge $3 a month. And for that, you get all of the PDFs we've ever done for 171 episodes, and a lot of extras go up over at that site just for our members. We really appreciate everybody that is doing that. And I just got back from vacation, as you heard on Monday, and we've had a crazy influx of new members to our Patreon site, which is so fantastic. So I'm about to rattle off a huge list of names to all these wonderful people that have decided to sign up and support the show. So thank you to Art, Sergio, Andres, John, Eugene, Bruce, Greg, Robert, Andrew, Roberta, Elliot, Alejandro, Portia, Zoltan, John, and Bill. Whew! Thank you guys so much for supporting the show. That is such an impressive list of names, and I got back from vacation, and all of those names were waiting in my inbox, and thank you guys so much for the support. It just means the world to me, and it ensures that this podcast will keep coming at you. All right, let's jump into today's episode. So today's episode is in response to a question from one of my longtime students. This is a person who has been taking lessons with me in person for a lot of years now. Very, very passionate about jazz and a great, great player. And he sent me an email and he was asking, just about several different topics. But one of them in this email from Mike, he was saying, sometimes when I'm playing a tune that's at like a medium or a fast tempo, I do okay when the chords are spread out and you feel a little bit of freedom. You feel like you have room to breathe a little bit and you can try some things and really try to play lines that you're hearing in your head instead of, reacting to the chord changes that are flying at you. But Mike said that, as soon as the chords get a little bit more dense, they become much harder to play, and he starts to fall back on the easy things, the things that come to your mind immediately. And that got me thinking, and when I was formulating a response to his email, I was thinking about this, and I thought it could be a great thing to share on the podcast, because I think that that's something that we all run into a lot, especially when we're at fast tempos. So the tune that he was talking about, one of his favorite tunes, is This I Dig of You by Hank Mobley. And it is an interesting tune because, the first 8 bars are basically all in one key. And then all of a sudden you get to, the second half of the A sections and it's like, oh my gosh, there's so many chords here and it moves around to all these different keys. And I totally felt his pain. That's something that I've come across in my development as a jazz musician, where you just start playing the stuff that's underneath your fingers already. And then after a while, you start to get sick of that stuff and you start to think, wow, I'll never really be able to play this section because I'm always just going to, play what I know. So I wanted to talk about a couple of strategies that we can use in places like this and some things that my teachers have taught me in the past and some things that I've worked on a little bit to help me with this particular problem. So the first thing, and something that I really, really enjoy doing, and with some of the modern tools that we have that help us to practice, this has become a lot easier than it would have been in the past. But the first strategy is to turn these tunes into ballads. And I think that can really, really help, because what that does is it slows it down to a point that it's almost like a different tune. You know what I mean? So I'm not taking a fast tune and just slowing it down a couple of clicks. I'm actually turning it into a completely different thing, which is a ballad feel. So if you have things like Band in a Box, or if you have iReal Pro, all of a sudden this is possible for us. You know, we can keep that play along there, we can keep the harmony in our ears, but we can completely change the feel of the tune that we're playing. And this gives us more time and more ability to sort of stretch ourselves out and maybe try some new things. Because it's extremely hard to try something new if the chords are flying past you. It's like your brain can barely keep up with the progression that's going by. So forget about trying new things. I mean, that's just going to be completely outside of your comfort zone. So if you can slow them down to the point of a ballad, now you've got all this time to think. And you've got all this time to just try new ideas. And they might work, they might not work. That's part of the whole process here, is the experimentation that goes along with trying to break down barriers in your playing. So if I were to take a certain section of This I Dig of You, put it in Band in a Box, and slow it down, then all of a sudden I can play in a completely different style, and I can discover new pathways through these chord changes. And it actually sounds pretty good, right? I mean, a well-written tune is gonna kind of sound good at all tempos, for lack of a better way of putting that. The changes are still going to be exactly the same, but I'm just allowing myself that extra little bit of elasticity that I can take some different turns. And, you know, maybe if I were to just play chord tones when the tempo is going by really fast, all of a sudden I can kind of break out of that mode and maybe try to connect some of those chord tones together, let's say with scale segments, or try something completely different. So what I'm going to do for the Patreon members this week is I'm going to give you a play along of This I Dig of You and a chord sheet. And this play along is going to be at ballad tempo. So I really want you to download that play along, and I want you to work on some of the more difficult sections of This I Dig of You at this slow walking ballad tempo. And then what you can do is, after you've done this for a while, start to speed it back up little by little. But it takes a lot of time. It's not like if you play the tune as a ballad one time, then you're going to be able to speed it back up to 200 BPM and all of a sudden just be able to play over it, no problem. You're going to have to do this for a while. You're going to have to play over it as a ballad, and eventually you're going to get sick of what you're playing, and you're going to search for some new sounds. You're going to search for a new approach to this set of changes. And you're going to be able to take a new approach to it, because then you're going to know the changes so well, they don't go flying by. So you're going to feel a little bit more comfortable stepping outside of your comfort zone and experimenting a little bit over it. Now, the second thing that you can do is along the same lines, but I'm going to advocate for something different. So what you can also do is take this complicated set of changes and you can play it completely out of time, like no time whatsoever. Just simply play over each chord, try a bunch of things for a period of time, and then move on to the next chord. And what this will do is this will kind of mess you up. This will be actually really, really difficult at first. It should be more difficult than playing it at a fast tempo. Because if you think about it, when the fast tempo is going by, we could fall back on a couple of tricks that we have in our back pockets, and we can kind of, all right, let's play this chord for 2 beats and then, on to the next chord, right? But if you are trying to kind of test yourself and say, all right, how many things can I actually play over this chord? How well do I actually know this particular key or this particular chord symbol? So by playing it out of time, you really are deciding whether you know what you're doing, or whether maybe you have 2 or 3 things that you know will sound good, but you really don't understand the ins and outs of everything. When I'm doing this particular thing, I'm almost imagining like I'm playing a cadenza over every chord, right? So I'm just spreading myself out. I'm saying, can I make a complete musical statement just using this one chord or this one key? And that is a great way to even further put the microscope on all of these chords that are flying by. And again, you'll start to form some new pathways in your brain. You'll start to form some new pathways under your fingers. You'll really start to see this stuff from a different angle rather than always doing it fast in time and always falling back on the exact same thing that you play. And if you listen to yourself play, I know this is true for myself. If I listen to enough recordings of myself over the same tunes, I start to realize like, wow, I really do just play the same stuff. So then that's a good candidate for using these strategies. Whatever part of the tune I start to notice that in, all right, let me do this thing where I turn it into a ballad, and then do this other approach where I kind of turn it into a cadenza and see how comfortable I really am over whatever the chord of the moment is. So that's your assignment for this week. I want you to download that play along, use that to do your ballad thing, and then turn off that play along and then try to just play a cadenza over every single chord. How many angles can you approach it from? Start on each chord tone, start on each note in the scale, and see if you're comfortable, moving up and moving down and playing wide intervals and narrow intervals. And there's just so many things that we can use to improve our playing over these sections. And then gradually start to push these tunes back into the tempos that they're actually played at. And I think you'll see a big improvement. I think you'll see a lot more variety in your playing and an ability to handle these chords in a much better way than you did before. Right? And if you're not noticing that, then go back and do it slow, even more. Just keep going with that stuff. Spread it out over a longer period of time, and you'll start to notice some serious improvement. All right, so hopefully that'll help a lot of you out there. Remember, if you do want to get your hands on the play along, sign up to become a patron for the podcast, 10minutejazzlesson.com. Click on one of the Patreon banners, head over and show your support today. And again, thanks, Mike, for that awesome question. And thanks for always supporting everything that we do here. I'm really glad that this could spur this kind of discussion that we have here. If you got any questions, make sure you drop them in the 10-Minute Community Facebook group. Just throw me a request. I will approve you, and you'll be into the group. You can ask me any questions there, or you can email me, leave me a question on the site. Tons of ways to get in touch with me. All right, everybody. We'll see you on Monday with another podcast. Hope you have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.